So if you want to build out a custom policy, then you can use the GitHub repository. You've got links to that to access, existing policy code. This is a sample, and I've just pulled it out of GitHub, and it's in Visual Studio Code, which is my editor of choice, but you can kick these things around in Notepad or whatever you wanted to do. And there's an initial header here, which is really a kind of just a syntax that gives us the name, version type, and a short description and other things, right? So when you look in the catalog, some of these things will appear on the tiles that we have in the policy catalog screen. So if I go back to my browser here and we have a look in the automation catalog, then those header information will be populated in the short description and other things, the version and everything on that particular page. So pretty self-explanatory. When you've been going through them policies to fill them in, right, before you apply them, you get asked for a set of parameters. And those are easily defined with syntax here, defining whether it's a list or a selection of resources. You're on mute. And again, the description of the parameter that you're going to fill in, right? So again, looking for examples, if you were going to build your own, go and pick one where it's got a parameter type that you need. And you can effectively copy paste some of the code here to produce these. But all of the parameter types are included in the documentation, that we shared. There's authentication. Okay, so we enter credentials for policies. They go out and they communicate with APIs, right? So in the case of Azure, we went in and we added an Azure Resource Manager credential yesterday. And that's what you've been using as you've run these usage and rate recommendation policies. So if you need access to an Azure API, we can just copy this credential block and add it to our custom policy. If you need access to the Flexera billing data, then again, we applied our own API key and token into a credential yesterday. And this is the code block that then gives the policy the ability to access those. So already we've got really the foundations here for a policy use case and building out a custom one. Some APIs use pagination, as in they will return you a page of data and you have to go and ask for the next. In many cases, it will just return all of the data. It really depends on the kind of size of payload that is sent back here. And then for the data sources and scripts we have, this is really just a definition that says, this is the API that I'm going to, this is the information that I expect to get back. So actually this one is going to our RBD API. Remember, we interacted with that. We did, pushed in our own rule-based dimension yesterday, and it's just going to pull back the ID of the RBDs, the name, and the date of the rules that are currently in that rule-based dimension. Okay, so again, a simple API call. We've also got a data source for Azure, where it's going to go here to the Azure Subscriptions API, and it's just going to get a list of the subscriptions and the names. Okay, so how many subscriptions have you got in your Azure account? Give me the ID and the name of them. And then we're going to take those Azure names and we're going to go to the subscriptions tags API that Microsoft provides. And for every subscription that we found from this data source, we're going to go and ask it to list the tags on that subscription. So you get the idea, and the name, hopefully, of the policy gives it away. But this is going to create a rule-based dimension based on the tags that exist on your Azure subscriptions. And so using those policies, and these will be in the public catalog before you probably get back to your desks on Monday, we can use policies to support AWS account tags, Azure subscriptions. You'll run that cardinality report and you'll apply this policy and you'll say, yeah, for Azure, we saw subscription tags, for account owner or cost center or whatever it might be. And this will automatically go and build you a rule-based dimension for those things. And then there's a little bit of JavaScript, and you can see what that JavaScript is doing here is actually creating the construct for the RBD. So we recognize here the syntax that we use, the JSON that we put into our Postman collection, where it's dimension equals vendor account. It's going to put the account ID here, and then it's going to use the value from the tag that we gathered. So this isn't a massively complex use case, right? We've got a few hundred lines of code here. And then the last one is actually it's going to upload, again, just using a put request into the RBD API, the payload that we've just built in that JavaScript block. And then it's just going to report that it's actually been generated successfully as an incident output in the policy. All right. So what that looks like in the actual CCO platform, going into automation and templates, I can go and apply a custom policy in here. So I can go in and say, actually, I'm going to upload a completely new file. So say I've emailed you all the files. So if you want to follow through on your environment, we browse for wherever I've saved that. And in this particular case, it's just in my downloads folder. And so I can select the Azure rule-based dimensions file there, and it compiles it. So it's going to compile that code, make sure it's syntactically correct and everything. It will report any errors that you've, if there are any that exist. And it's then uploaded into this particular tenant. So it's not available publicly. It won't even appear in the catalog for that customer unless you click on the publish button, but you could publish it if they would then wanted to use it themselves to create their own dimensions and other things. And we can then apply that policy. So you can go in here, we can run it on a daily basis, right? So account tags, subscription tags, they're going to change potentially frequently. So we might run this once a day. We can pick our Azure credentials from the list. And so those were the ones that you will have added, and also for the Flexera API key. And then obviously remember, rule-based dimensions are time-based, aren't they? So you can have different allocations from different dates. You can leave this for 2010. It doesn't really matter. Your billing data only goes back a couple of months. And we can enter the key. Okay, so on your test environment, there is a subscription tag for owner. So we can go in and say we want to actually create a rule-based dimension based on the owner tag. And you can put in multiples in here. So you can create a whole set of different dimensions that will appear in your drop-down list and your filters and other things. Just with this policy, apply it, and it will execute. And tomorrow you'll come back and you'll have a custom dimension for owner that will be based on the subscription tags. Publish will make it available in the catalog, but for the tenant that you're in, right? So it doesn't publish it to GitHub, and therefore every customer will see that. But it will make it accessible for the customer outside of this kind of template screen, so that if they wanted to go and apply more of them, they could do so.